Today we'll understand what is subroutine, and for subroutine we use call and return instruction, and also we'll understand these instructions, right? Now, if you see the call instruction is used to call subroutine, right? Whenever there is a subroutine, the call instructions are used here, right? First, we'll understand what is a subroutine here, right? Subroutines are often used to perform tasks that need to be performed frequently, right? Subroutines are some which perform some specific task, and these tasks are performed frequently. These this program we call it this kind of program we call it as a subroutine. In fact, you might have seen in higher level language, right? uh, in C language, you might have used different functions there, right? Functions like maybe string copy, string concatenate. We have different functions which are defined for the string, right? All those are static functions, right? Now, normally what we do is we don't write. If I want to do any string copy or string concatenation, right? What I do is I directly call the functions. I send the parameters to that. It will perform the required functions there, the task which is for which the function is returned, right? It will write and it will return the value to the main program, right? Like if you see the subroutine and functions are more or less the same as that, but normally in functions what we have return values there, but in subroutine we don't have any return values, right? And if it is, take an example, right? When you can program that as a subroutine, take an example that average marks of 50 students, then the program has to be executed 50 times. It can be coded as a subroutine here. Now take an example, I want to find the average of 50 students. It means for each of the students, I need to call the program and send all these parameters there, right? The students, and find the average. Maybe for all the six subjects, he has found that like how much is the average the student has obtained, right? It will calculate, it will do all the calculations, and it will return back for each of the students. It will run. So since there are 50 students, the code will be executed for 50 times there. For this kind of task, this could be written as a one subroutine. Similarly, take an example that the program for reading the data sent from the satellite every 2 milliseconds. I know that the satellite is sending the data for every 2 milliseconds of time here. So that whenever there is event which is taking place, so that the satellite is sending the data here, now I have a one specific task or one program or one subroutine which is returned there, and what is the function of that is it will read whatever the data which is sent by the satellite, and it will store into some memory, right? That is the function of that task. And you can see that this task the program or the subroutine what we've written, this subroutine is called every 2 milliseconds of time here. And these kind of tasks, since these tasks are frequently called, we can write that as a subroutine there, right? And the call instructions can be explicitly included in the program or implicitly included using interrupt, right? As part of the program, you can directly use the call instruction, or as I said here, as part of the interrupts, the call instruction is implicit because it will call interrupt service routine there, right? Now, if you see that whenever the call is made, right? If you see whenever the code is running and a call instruction appears, right? Now, the processor or the CPU has to do here now, right? If you see that, we'll see what are the sequence of events while executing the call instruction. Take an example, I'm running a code now, right? I'm executing the code, and the next instruction what I have is a maybe now it is a call instruction what we have it now, right? Now, since there is a call instruction, what the processor has to do now? Now the processor has to stop running this program here, right? It has to stop running this program, And also we know that the program counter will always hold the address of the next instruction. So that maybe after call instruction, there is next instruction. And next instruction address will be stored in the program counter, right? Now the first thing what the processor has to do is, while giving the control to the subroutine because of the call instruction, first the what it has to do, processor has to do is it has to store the address of the next instruction onto the stack area, right? If you know that we have a stack area and a stack pointer is used to point the stack memory locations here, right? And stack is initialized to some address here, it is always stored over the data area, right? Now if you see that, now stack pointer is having to one address, and we know how the stack pointers works, we know how the push and pop operation works. Now I want to push the data onto the stack now, right? Why I want to push the data onto the stack now? Because now it has to push the data onto the stack there, because whenever the subroutine execution is completed, again it has to come back to the original program, it has to pick the next instruction to be executed, it has to pick that instruction for execution there. In order to know which instruction to be executed, this has to be stored onto the stack area here, right? Now if you see, the program counter is a 16-bit register and it is holding on to the address of the next instruction to be executed, right? And since it's a 16-bit, what this will do is that in order to push the data to the stack, what is the operation which is performed here? Pushing the data on the, we use the push instruction is used there, right? Since pushing the data onto, what it does is it will increment the stack pointer by, first it will increment the stack pointer by 1, and after that it will push the data onto the stack memory location. Now the first what it will do is, first the lower order byte of the program counter will be pushed to the stack area, right? That will be pushed onto the stack area. Again the next higher byte, it has to be stored. Again what it will do, since it has to store the data here, again the stack pointer is incremented by 1, and the higher order byte of the program counter is stored onto the program memory, is stored onto the stack memory location there. And during this time what will happen, the processor will run the subroutine, right? It will complete the execution of the subroutine, and as per the subroutine instruction, at the end you have a return instruction there, right? After a return instruction, the processor will come to the main program, the program which is called the subroutine there, right? It will come to the main program. Now what the program counter now the processor does is that it will go to the stack, and it has to read the data, it has to the address of the next instruction to be executed in that main program. Now what it will do is it will do pop operation, right? It will get what is the address which is stored onto the stack pointer here, right? As you can see how the pop operation is performed, right? It will read the content, where whichever is the top of the stack, from that top of the stack it will read the content. Now it will read the content now, right? And we know that this content will is for higher order byte of the program counter, right? Again after reading that content, it will decrement the stack, it will decrement the stack pointer by 1, so that it is pointing to SP plus 1 now, right? And it will read whatever the content in that memory location, and that will be copied into L, so that now the program counter is having the address of the instruction to be executed now, so that it now the processor knows what is the address of the instruction to be executed. Now that address is retrieved from the stack memory locations here, right? And if you see that what I said, if you see in this sentence, the call instructions can be explicitly included in the program or implicitly included using interrupts, whether it is directly called in the program by using call instruction, or or if it is implicit. When it is implicit, if there is an interrupt, if there is an interrupt request, if there is an interrupt request, what will happen is that, right, it is a call instruction. It will go on to the interrupt service routine and it will run that subroutine and it will come back, right? Whether it is implicitly implicitly the call instruction is called, or explicitly the call instruction is called in the program, right? Whether it is, right, irrespective of that, the sequence of events which are taking place still remains the same here, right? The first thing, as I said here, what it does here, whenever there is a call instruction, the processor will stop running that program, right? Will stop running that program, right? And now the control has to go to the subroutine. Before the control has to go to the subroutine, what it does, since the program counter is holding on to the address of the next instruction to be executed, that address needs to be stored onto the stack area. Since the program counter is 16-bit register, right? The first, the lower order byte of the program counter will be pushed onto the stack. How it will be performed here? The stack pointer is incremented by 1 and the lower order byte is stored onto the stack. Again, the stack pointer is incremented by 1 and the higher order of the program counter is copied onto the stack memory location. Now, after completion and execution of the subroutine, right, whenever it runs a return instruction, now the control will be returned back to the main program, and now the processor needs to know from which address I need to start executing, and that address is given by popping. Right now, what the program counter, what the processor does, that it will go to the stack area. Now it will perform the pop operation, right? It will read the contents of SP plus 2 and it will be stored onto the PCH, that is a higher order byte of the program counter. It will decrement the stack pointer by 1 and whatever the content you have it in that memory location, that is copied onto the lower byte of the program counter there, right? And again the stack pointer is decremented by 1 here, right? So that now the program pointer is holding on to the next instruction to be executed here, right? If you see, the sequence of events which takes place during call execution are summarized here, right? Now a call opcode occurs in the program software or an interrupt is generated in the hardware circuitry. That's what I said. Whether the call instruction is explicitly called in the program or are implicitly included in the interrupt request there, right? Whether it is implicit or explicit, the sequence of events still remains the same here, right? Once that call opcode is called here, what the processor does is the return address of the next instruction after the call instruction or the interrupt found in the program counter. The return address bytes are pushed onto the stack. Low byte first. The stack pointer is incremented for each push on the stack. The subroutine address is placed in the program counter. The subroutine is executed, right? It will go, as I said here, the program counter, yeah. The program, now the program PC has to hold the address of the subroutine. So the PC is holding on to the address of the program counter. It will execute the subroutine and it will perform the return. The subroutine is executed. The return opcode is encountered at the end of the subroutine here. Everyone understood? This is the sequence of events which takes place after the call opcode is called there. Right? Everyone understood this here? As I said here, the return address of the next instruction after the call instruction or the interrupt is found in the program counter. Right? Since the next instruction is stored in the program counter, but the program counter should have the address of what now? Subroutine there. So that what the processor does, it will, the return address will be stored onto the stack there, right? It will be stored onto that, and now the program counter will hold the address of the subroutine, right? And in the subroutine, it will execute all the instructions, right? And after when the return opcode is encountered, is executed, what will happen? Now the control has to come to the main program, right? Since the control has to come to the main program, now the PC should have the address of the next instruction to be executed in the main program, so that it will perform an operation onto the stack and retrieve the return address, and the program counter will have the address of the instruction to be executed next in the main program there. Right? Everyone understood this one? This is the sequence of events which takes place, right? If you see the diagram again, what we had is whenever the call is, whether it is implicit or explicit, right? Since the PC is holding on to the address of the next instruction to be executed in the main program, now this data, this return address has to be stored onto the stack, right? What it does is it will increment the stack pointer by 1, right? And it will store or copy the lower order byte of the program counter onto the stack. Again, the stack pointer is incremented by 1, and it will copy the higher order byte of the program counter onto the stack memory location. Now the PC will have the address of the subroutine, because it has to execute the subroutine now, right? Or the interrupt service routine, which is called because of the interrupt, right? Now it will execute the subroutine there, right? And it will run the return, right? After returning, what it does is now the processor has to return back to the original program, the program which has called the subroutine, which in this scenario it is a main program. Now, in order to come to the main program and start running the main program, it has to know the address from where it has to start executing it. And that is where the processor will start retrieving the return address from the stack here, right? Now what it does is, right, this is the top of the stack. It will read the contents from that, and that will be stored onto the higher border of the order byte of the program counter. Again, it will decrement the stack pointer by 1, and the whatever the content you have it in that memory location, that is copied onto the program control lower byte there, right? Now PC is holding on to the address of the is holding on to the address where the processor has to start executing in the main program, right? And these are the steps which takes place after the call execution. I've just summarized the same things what I've explained in the through the diagram there, right? This is about the call instruction and some of the mnemonics what we have it in 8051 instruction for call and return. What we have is a call, yes, add, right? What it does, call the subroutine located on the same page as the address of the opcode immediately following the a call instruction. Push the address of the instruction immediately after the call on the stack. And what it does, a call means what? Yes, address. Short absolute address. We already know the range for short absolute address. What is the range for that? It is 2 kilobytes of memory. It is one page of 8051 microcontroller, right? It is one page. If this address can be within 2 kilobytes of the page there, right? If the subroutine is written anywhere between that range, it will jump to that subroutine, it will execute the subroutine, and it will come back to the original program which is called the subroutine there, right? Since it has to, since the control has to be going to the subroutine, what it has to do, push the address of the instruction immediately after the call on the stack, right? The return address is stored onto the stack there. A call is nothing but what? It is short absolute range, which is the range is between 2 kilobytes, which is one page of 8051 memory location, right? Next, what we have, L call, L address. What is L address here? Large absolute range. What is large absolute range? You know the range for that. It is nothing but the entire program memory. How much is the program memory we have it? 64 kilobytes here. It can access the subroutine anywhere which is stored between 64 kilobytes of program memory. It will jump to subroutine, it will execute the subroutine, it will come back to the original program there, right? Next, what we have is return instruction. Now, what this return instruction does is that pop 2 bytes from the stack onto the program counter. This instruction will initiate the retrieving of the return address which is put onto the stack there, right? Pop 2 bytes. Why it is 2 bytes? Because the program counter is 16 bytes. In the first pop, it will get the higher order byte of the address. The next pop, it will get the lower order byte of the address, and that 16 bit will point to the address of the instruction to be executed in the original program there, right? And again, what we have one more return instruction which is explicitly for the interrupt. Return interrupt. If you're returning from an interrupt, right, the operation is still the same. Pop 2 bytes from the stack into the program counter and resets the interrupt enable flip-flops here. Right? Everyone understood this one? This mnemonics, right? How these mnemonics are working. I'll go through one example on this one. As you can see here, what I said here, right? This is, if you can see on the left side, what we have, this operation will take place because of the call instruction, and this operation or this task will take place because of the return instruction here. The pushing will take place because of the call instruction, and the popping will take place because of the return instruction here, right? And also you can see this L call and A call, we know about this one. It is a 3-byte instruction, right? We saw this for a different jump also. The unconditional jumps what we saw, and we saw different ranges of jumps there, right? And similar to that, for the call also we have the same jump, right? Here the first byte is opcode, and the second and the third byte are used for the address of the target subroutine. Since the subroutine could be anywhere between 64 kilobytes of program memory space, we need 2 bytes of address there. And also a call, it is 2-byte instruction. And here in 2-byte instruction, we know that the 11 bytes are used for the address within 2k byte range here, right? We'll see this example, right? The first what we have is an assembly directory, and we are saying that it has to start from 00 in the code memory. Move a comma hash 55h. A is initialized with 55h, and the same 55 content is copied into program P1. Now what I do, now I make a call. You can see here, this is explicit. The call instruction is explicitly called in the program call. As a programmer, I'm calling this instruction now, right? Now what a call delay I say. Synthesis a call. A call means what now it is? Absolute short range, right? The subroutine can be anywhere between 2 kilobytes of page, right? Within that range, right? The subroutine is return. Now I say a call delay. When I say a call delay, what will do now? It will, as you can see here, it is a call delay here. Now which is the next instruction to be executed in this main program? What we have, CPLA, right? So that the program counter will have the address of this CPLA there, right? Right. Now the address of the CPLA, now this address has to be pushed down to the stack, which is our returning address, has to be pushed down to the stack here. First is a lower byte, and after that it is higher byte, right? Once the address are stored onto the stack, now what the processor does is that now the program counter will have the address of the subroutine, right? Since we have a delay here, now it is delay here, right? In the program code you have some memory address for that now, and that address will be stored in the program counter, right? So that the program counter will have the address here now of the subroutine, right? It will have this address and will execute this instruction. Processor will execute this instruction, move r5 comma 0 hash 0 ff h, that is stored into r5. And next what we have, decrement jump no 0. First it will decrement the value of r5, and if the value of r5 is not equal to 0, again perform this, loop. Again this sequence of the same instruction has to be executed. How many times here? It is ff, maybe 256 times now, 255 times what we have it. It will be executing for 255 times. That is the delay what we have now, right? The time which is required in order to make the contents of R5 0 here, right? This instruction will be executed 255 times. After that, the R5 is equal to 0. Since it is equal to 0, what will happen? It will come out of the loop, and now the subroutine will execute return instruction. As part of the return instruction, what the processor does here, it will perform retrieving of the return address which is stored onto the stack. Now it will perform two pop operations so that the program counter will have the address of the next instruction to be executed. So that which is the next instruction to be executed here, address of that, it will have the address of CPL A here, right? CPL A here, right? It will do that. So that now the PC will have the address of CPLA, it will execute CPLA. Again, what we have? Simple jump here. It is an unconditional jump. What we have? It is jump to this one, right? Here, what it is a relative jump, what we have it, right? Again, it will do move P1 comma A. You can see here, we are writing a delay function, right? And the content of P1, right, is complemented for this delay time, whatever the delay or whatever the content, the number which is given here, depending on the number, the delay is decided there, right? Everyone understood this one, how this program will run and how you can explicitly make a call in the program, right? This completes branch instructions. Thank you, everyone.